Hello and welcome to Wake and Jake with myself, Jake Storielli, BBD, and hi Bailey, Foolish Baseball, aka Bailey Freeman. How are you, Bailey?
I'm doing very well. You just reinformed me that my Atlanta Hawks do indeed have the
Yeah.
number one pick in the upcoming draft, and I'm just really happy for them because it's such a clear cut number one. I really think that the obvious move is they're going to draft Victor Wembanyama, so I'm excited. Oh no.
Just hit the horn. Who's next? And here's Jolly. We'll see if there's any other sports talk at the end. Me and BBD are dressed as the Knicks bench tonight. I don't know. It's one of those things that's pretty funny seeing this New York Knicks team is a ton of fun. The fact that they have a whole college team playing for them is like bonus fun. They play a fun brand of basketball, and this city has been so dearth of good basketball that New York is like excited for a team that currently has nobody on the bench, and their lineup is like broken. But it's fun to see, and hopefully it's like the start of something. I think we'll circle back on that another time because we want to talk a couple baseball things. Bailey, I'd pull back the curtains in life, symbolically, and I hit you up yesterday. I was like, hey, if you want to get something in this week, if you have a topic, because I know that was part of the exciting part for you, is like if you have something, this can be a good forum for you to talk it out a little bit. And you, music to my ears, you said the magic YouTube word, Shohei Ohtani, and him becoming the best hitter ever. So it's like, yeah. And then the new sexiest thing in baseball, Splinker, you're out. Bat speed is in, and I'm excited to get your thoughts on that. So I think for the YouTube audience and my audience overseas, where do you want to go with Shohei?
Yeah, so the discussion I think we want to have is basically, is Shohei now the clear-cut best hitter in Major League Baseball, period, full stop? And I think coming into the season, a lot of people would have already agreed with that statement, and I don't think I would have been one of them.
Okay.
In 2023 last year, you'll recall he had a higher, WRC plus, OPS plus, whatever, you want to use. His was higher than everybody's. His was higher than Acuna's. His was higher than Judge's. His was higher than Betts. But I didn't have that feeling necessarily that meant that he was the de facto best hitter in baseball, because it's that discussion's been kind of in an interesting place. I mean, late 2010s, it was clearly Trout. And then at some point a few years ago, we felt like maybe there was a changing of the guard in Soto's direction.
And I'll just to add to the storyline a little bit, I
Sure.
think there was like a period where Soto, Tatis was like so good at first that it was like, what's this? And then Judge, because again, for Yankee fans, we had to do this conversation for a couple years that was like, people saying he's injury prone. And then there was an argument like, almost dumb sports media, is he a great hitter or does he just like hit home runs? And it's like, well, he's actually pretty amazing. So yeah, it was a fun conversation for a little bit because once the board became open after Trout, I've said like Freddie is the best pure hitter, and like you can start going down a lot of angles. So sorry, but continue.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And so Judge sort of inserts himself into the conversation, particularly with what he did in 2022. And I guess coming into this season, 2024, if you'd asked me who the best hitter in baseball was, I mean, I think I probably said it on this program at some point. I would have said Jordan, to be honest with you, just because I felt like he had the highest floor. Like in any given season, there's going to be, depending on the offensive environment, like five guys that one dot. And I would, if you made me pick one, I would say, Jordan for sure. One dots in 2024. And he's been all right this year, but it has not been the hottest starts. But this isn't really about him. It's about Shohei, because Shohei, despite being the best hitter in baseball by many measures last year, it appears to have taken a step forward at this point, a month and a half in the season in his first year with the Dodgers. And it's been pretty incredible to watch. His barrel rate right now is his career high. He's cut his strikeout rate by about 5%, and that's not necessarily a total mirage either. Like that's his contact rate is the highest it's ever been in his career. His chase rate is almost the lowest it's been in his career. And I'm really surprised by it, to be honest with you, because, you know, for starters, I remember, and again, this was a different guy, but I remember back in 2020 coming off the TJ, even, you know, I mean, he hit in 2019 for them, but it's like, you know, he had kind of a not so great year in those 2019, 2020 years, at least by his standards offensively. And because he had elbow surgery this past offseason, I was worried, you know, he might not be able to quite get it going early in the season. You know, Harper had full TJ, but when Harper came back from his, you know, TJ really quickly to hit last year, you'll recall he had stretch of like a month where he didn't even homer, you know? And so I was worried maybe the same fate would be for Ohtani, and the answer is very clearly no. I mean, he is hitting the ball harder than he ever has. He's not striking out. And Dan Szymborski from Fangraphs made a really interesting point with an article a few days ago, and I think he's right. Shohei Ohtani can absolutely win a triple crown this year, just the way the Dodgers lineup is constructed around him. Like the hardest thing for him to get is probably going to be that batting average. He's currently hitting 354, which is just, you know, ridiculous. But I mean, I think that's about what Arise hit last year in a full season. So that's going to be the tough one. But yeah, I guess the question I'm turning over to you is like, do you agree with the thesis here that Shohei Ohtani in the last month and a half has become the best hitter in baseball? Kind of the default answer to that question, or were you even on that you know, that bandwagon, you know, preseason when I wasn't?
I start out wide and I come in. That's what I do. The fact it's even a conversation is so silly, because this guy can pitch at a high level. So just any time the topic comes up, I do like to say that, because the other thing that's going to leak out at some point, so I'll just nip it in the bud, he's one of the fastest players in baseball. This guy, it's really, every time you peel back a layer, there's something else there. And we'll save Ipe towards the end. The last 176 games, Shohei Ohtani is a 316 batting average, 415 on base, a 1.070 OPS. Whoa. Okay. That's insane. That's MVP level. And another thing that I'm on, that I have to get more actual data on it before I pretend like this is a thing, but being a DH is hard. Like, it's not just, this guy gets to DH today, he will hit good. It's like, no, this is kind of a brutal ask. Like, you're essentially, depending how the game goes, you're like a 4-time pinch hitter. Like, you're kind of not involved. And that's where I've kind of like whispered it a couple times on Talkin Baseball, but it stinks that Marcell Ozuna, like, will never be liked. And I mean, for reasons that are whatever, it's kind of fair. But Marcell Ozuna has leaned perfectly into the, like, I've gotten thicker, I'm a good DH. And, like, you know, David Ortiz obviously played that drum pretty hard. That for a couple years, the DH spot migrated to, can this be a rest day for our players, or do we have a platoon guy? Like, how can we make this work? Because DHing every day is hard, and to sacrifice the position of designated hitter, you could potentially be clogging your lineup, because if the DH slumps, Giancarlo Stanton with the Yankees, which we'll be talking about with bat speed, it can kind of throw your team off a little bit. So the fact, like, I think people used to penalize DHs because they were like, designated hitter, like that's your one job, bud. And it's like, no, it's actually brutal. It's like against everything that's sport, like being involved in the game and all that. The best hitters in the game comes down to Shohei, Jordan, Judge, Freddie, Soto, Mookie. Ronald Acuna Jr. obviously was incredible last year. I think his other tools and what that brings to the table gets you there. I guess just off the top of my head, who Is anyone else with those guys? Because that's a special group. That's the potential one dot crew.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The one dot crew. You know, I mean, did you hit Jordan? I guess that'd be the other one. And then I still, I mean, Seager, you
Okay.
know, Seager is in that discussion for me, even though he's had a bad start, because when he's on, like, I feel like he is absolutely up there with those guys.
For me, and I loved what you said because Trev almost got me on the line yesterday. Because a dumb baseballism I have is like, if you have one thing that you need to improve, I feel like these guys can do that. Like baseball is such a brutal game that, if you can hit and all you need to do is your next step is learn how to play left field. Like I'd like to think with your competitive nature to get yourself to the major league level, like we can do that. We have the ability. For when you go to the special players, Aaron Judge, I think after 2021, I think his literally like the sole weakness was sliders away. That I believe he went into that offseason and I think he talked about it and he's like, that's what I worked on. Like, and again, that's a very special place to be in baseball when you're Aaron Judge and your weakness is like one thing. But it goes to show that I think he went from like one of the worst players on sliders away that year to like one of the best at it. So you countered that with Shohei saying like, hey, he's already done the Tommy John thing and he wasn't good. So I initially was going to go there like, hey, he's only focusing on hitting, like, and look at him go. And it's like, well, we kind of saw that. And that's not exactly what happened. And like you're rehabbing, so that kind of stinks. That the other lame baseballism that if you want to shoot down or boost that I would jump to before going to the next steps is lineup protection. And like, I get that it's not real, but is it when it's Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and like the super team Dodgers?
Well, I think he feels like he doesn't have to press as much. I mean, when you have that, I still don't really think lineup protection is real. Well, it is real in the sense that it changes the shape of the production, but I don't think the actual production overall is pretty different. Like, if you gave him a bunch of plate appearances on this year's Angels, he probably has a higher on base and a lower slugging, and they, counteract each other. So that's basically the same. Because they're going to walk him more, but he's going to get less opportunities to slug. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. I was looking his zone percentage. So what the percentage of pitches he sees in the zone, it's up a little bit this year.
Okay.
I think one thing to be interesting to look at, and I can't, cue it up just yet, is the swings around the shadow of the strike zone, because he may have been doing that a fair bit more last year, trying to get the big base hit to win his team the game. Whereas I think this year he's more comfortable taking pitches, getting deeper into the counts, and that's really helped inform his hitting approach. Because like I said, his chase rate is down quite a bit. Last year he was at a 33% O swing. This year he's down to 29. Like that's a pretty significant change, especially when you factor in the fact that his contact rate is up from 71% to 77%, a career best for him. So it's pretty ridiculous what he's doing. And I guess I wasn't buying into the now that he's not pitching, he can just focus on hitting and he'll be the best hitter in baseball narrative. But lately I have been, and it's been fun to see also because, I mean, the Dodgers know this too. Like when they signed him to that contract, especially given how long it is, I think they knew that there was like a very like real chance that he would never really establish himself as a consistent two-way player again. Like maybe he comes back from this elbow surgery, which is like the second major elbow surgery he's had, and maybe he's got one more season left in him pitching, or two, or maybe we don't know, right? And so his long-term outlook then would turn into they would probably play him in the outfield if pitching was for sure a no-no for him. And now it's like, okay, well, did you just sign Barry Bonds? Is that all this was?
Right.
You thought you were getting Babe Ruth and you got Barry Bonds instead. So that's kind of, those are some of the early, Shohei thoughts I'm having a month and a half into the season. Because again, he's just, it's ridiculous what he's doing. He has 2.6 WAR right now. He's a DH only.
Yeah.
He's pacing for like an 8 WAR season as a DH only. Like that never happens. It'll be interesting to see, if he keeps this up. I mean, are we just going to have a full-time DH win MVP? Because I don't think we've seen that happen before.
Well, I mentioned Ozuna before, who, if Shohei didn't exist, we might be talking about him because he's leading MLB, or the NL at least, in home runs, RBI, 329, 413, a 1.048 for Marcel the Bear.
Basically leading in everything Shohei isn't.
Right. So that's insane, but Ozuna can't run and has half the WAR of Shohei because of that. And what I was going to say a normal year, but like you alluded to, we're not sure what a normal year is going to look to. Ozuna can't pitch from everything I've been told. We'll see if the Braves have something for October with that. And dude, the Shohei pitching stuff, for me, maybe this is dumb, and for the Wake and Jake people, it's the whole John Boy Media thing. We don't get before the show and we're like, okay, what is the clip today? And it's like, all right, Beebs, hit him with the, Tom Brady will lose today because one of BBD's lines was like, when we did some football playoff stuff, it's like, I don't bet against Tom Brady. Like, that's just a rule. And it's like, you know what? That's a pretty safe rule. Shohei, with his future pitching stuff, not going to bet against it. Like, this guy is a different breed. Scouts didn't know if he would hit at the major league level, and now we're having a discussion if he's the best hitter in the game. His body is literally different. That it's Dodger investment-wise, it's going to be interesting to see how much of effect that has, because Shohei's going to pitch.
Yeah.
And like the baseball card I just brought up, baseball reference, date myself a little bit. Oh, dude, I have such a good thing I'm going to date myself with when we get to swing speed. Reminder for that. They probably smoltz him, and they try to get an Ohtani rule going where, John Smoltz, if the kids don't know, elite starting pitcher until 1999, out of all of 2000, injured, comes back 01, 02, 03, 04 as a closer.
That's how I remember him as a child. Like, John Smoltz to me is a closer as much as he was a starter, even if he only closed for 4 years and started the other, 15.
And again, maybe I shouldn't be comparing this, because maybe John Smoltz, is, as much as he's ruffled my feathers on some broadcast, a 38-year-old John Smoltz transitioned back to the rotation through 229 innings with a 3.06 ERA. And then he started the next 2 years too. So maybe that's not a roadmap, and maybe I need to remind myself how good Smoltzy was when he's telling me how bad this era is at baseball. He did have a funny over the weekend. He was calling with Joe Davis the Fox Saturday game, which was Brewers Cardinals maybe, and I think the Brewers scored their first 2 runs on hit by pitches, and Smoltzy was trying to find, he's like, there's got to be a baseball stat for this, something about a team scoring on their first 2 runs hit by pitch. He just couldn't find the wording, and then he had the light bulb moment, and he's like, bases loaded, and then he had a moment of humility, which I've never seen Smoltz have on the air, and he's like. He kind of, under his breath, he's like, obviously the bases had to be loaded. And Joe Davis laughed at him. And I was like, yes, John Smoltz, we can do this. Okay, apparently I still have some demons with him I need to get off my chest. Shohei's going to come back and pitch, and it's going to be at a high level. That I cannot wait to see that. I just don't think outfield is going to be in play for him. And I don't even think that was your question or final statement, but at the older we've gotten, Ian Happ opened our eyes one time, flex, that he was he said something about hating playing at Yankee Stadium, and we're like, ooh, what's that about? And he's like, dude, that run to the outfield is a long one. And we're like, okay, that seems kind of pathetic for a pro athlete if I'm just being straight up. Then you get older and your body starts to feel things more. And you think about standing 9 innings in the outfield and you got to do some runs out there and you run the bit. Like, it does take a toll that with Shohei Ohtani's, with everything else and what he can do from the DH spot, outfield's more out for me than pitching. I guess that would be my hot take. Wake and Jake, clip it.
Yeah, I just think if he's not going to pitch, he's an outfielder long term. That's kind of the point I was getting at.
Yeah, I derailed it a little bit, but the coffee's kicking in, and I'm just excited to see you.
Can I derail it a little more?
Please.
So this guy, do you know who Dennis Sarfate is?
We're a big Dennis Sarfate.
He is sort of the Japanese Mariano Rivera.
He's Kirk Saarloos.
Well, for NPB, he's American, but he went to NPB, and he is maybe the closest thing they've had to Mariano Rivera in the sense that he's been the closer for a lot of like World Series winning teams or Japan Series.
That's awesome.
And I think he's retired now, but he gave an interview with another podcast, Effectively Wild. Shout out to them. Sorry to shout out another podcast on your own podcast. And I was listening to it. This was years and years ago. This was before Ohtani even came over, but they were talking about him being posted soon, hopefully. And at the time, you'll remember when Ohtani was coming over, I think you said it yourself, the general consensus was, yeah, this guy's probably gonna be a pretty good pitcher because, 162 kilometers per hour is 162 kilometers per hour. Like, you can't fake that, but we don't know if he can hit. And I think probably the famous quote that still goes around from a scout to this day was he's like a high school hitter. He hasn't seen a major league curveball or anything like that. And Sarfate was basically like, I've seen him in the cage. Like, I think he's a better hitter than he's pitcher. And that was not with the consensus at the time whatsoever. And the more I watch him this year, I'm like, did Dennis Sarfate know ball? Like he called it like that. He's like, I'm not worried about this guy's ability to hit whatsoever when everyone was. So yeah, shouts out to Dennis.
And the shout out to Dennis Sarfate.
Yeah.
I'm Shohei's. If you're a baseball savant person, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitting bubbles that are 100th percentile, including basically all the ones you'd want. So I guess partially closing the loop on Shohei, and unless there's anything else I'm missing, like what is it? Like, did he get better? I guess if this is a Shohei Ohtani hitting thesis, like, what are we landing on? Like, it's just anything he does is freaky and he's not the same?
Well, I think maybe the change of scenery's helped. The Dodgers are they're a better organization than the Angels. And even for someone as talented as Shohei, it's possible that he's, picked up on more things. You even alluded to it earlier, like with the whole Ippei situation. Like, I think the Dodgers feel he's more accessible now that he's out of the picture. And so maybe they're able to, give him feedback on certain things. But yeah, I think the biggest thing we can probably point to is the change to the Dodgers. And the second thing would be this is his second opportunity to focus as a hitter only. And I mentioned it didn't go that great in the grand scheme of his career the first time around when he was, still getting established in Major League Baseball. But yeah, I think it's a combination of some of those factors. I think it's the Dodgers. I think it's being able to focus as a hitter has apparently turned him into from a competitor for the best hitter in the league to what appears to actually just be the best hitter in the league.
Yeah, it's with him. The next steps are going to be so interesting. We had tangents about a closer back to starting pitcher career. We potentially outfield if that gets banged. Yeah, you wonder. The other thing with baseball, unhyping Shohei a little bit, is just it's baseball. That Jordan, who has an argument with any hitter in baseball. He's currently 264, 339, a 792 OPS, which is a 128 OPS plus right now. And I think if any of us had to place a bet on those numbers going up or down, we would say they'd go up, probably significantly. That, yeah, you wonder the ebbs and flows of a baseball season. And, like, you know, when that first at bat is a line drive right at the right fielder, and you have to think about, God damn it, I made out in that first at bat instead of it was a double. Maybe some people think that's really dumb, but this is how humans and baseball players think, and that's my biggest lineup protection thing. And I do understand if you're a good player, it's going to figure itself out over time. I think the one thing that we can never fully measure is when Shohei Ohtani is up and on deck is Anthony Rendon in his first game off the IL, you know, the pitcher might feel a little more confident in really trying to paint the corner. Where when it's Freddie, Mookie, I think Freddie's been behind him. Mookie's been in front of him. So if Mookie's on first, Freddie's on deck, and I've got to pitch to Shohei, I still don't think we can properly quantify that because there's a human element about pitchers throwing with conviction that we'll never be able to quantify. But there's something there. There's something there that I don't know, because as you look at Shohei's card right now, we've either entered, again, just a special Barry Bonds-ish type part of his career, which, oh my God. Or, you know, his 2022 is a fine, incredible season offensively. He'd also finished fourth in the Cy Young. But, you know, he was 273, 356, and 875 OPS. So has he just taken another leap as a hitter? Or, you know, are the baseball gods with him right now and there will be another shoe to drop? I don't know, man. Right now, his 2023, 2024, just if I was doing like a blind baseball reference, it looks like Miggy Cabs and Pujols when they're like hitting their prime. Like double bolding OPS and slugging. Like, it rarely happens with a baseball player, and it's not supposed to be the guy who can pitch to.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure, man.
God. Where are you at with the Dodgers? I want to get to bat speed, but like, do you see them as super team? Do you see them as like flawed at the bottom? Because right now, like Lux and Outman are really struggling, or is it just like there's not really a way to measure them? They're incredible. Let's see in October.
Yeah, I remember watching them last year when it was just Mookie and Freddie up there at the top of the lineup, and I felt like every single Dodgers game started with the runners on the corners. Like Mookie would get on base and Freddie would hit a single and then Mookie would run a third. And when you throw Shohei in there, it's just like, well, now it seems like every time the inning lines up so that Mookie's going to lead off and Shohei's going to hit second and Freddie's going to hit third, they're going to score a run, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are a super team. Mostly in the sense that I think they and the Braves have the two best rosters still, even with some of their weaknesses. Like the Braves do have a pretty clear weakness with Strider missing, but the rotation's still been really strong. But yeah, I think they're a super team, but I'm still a little curious. Like I'd love to see the Padres make a serious run at them. I think if there's any team in the West that can do it, it would be them. But yeah, I mean, I think, I would say super team is the correct label for what we're seeing with the Dodgers right here.
Are you glass half full or glass half empty with the Braves? Because they're winning tons of games, but you know, a lot of guys kind of haven't like gone yet. Which again, depending how you're seeing that glass of milk, could be, you know, we're going to be talking about Braves winning 14 out of 15 soon, or it's like I don't want to say something amiss, but I'm also loving that the Phillies are kind of being what you just asked of the Padres, like pushing them.
Yeah, I mean the Phillies. Must be how teams of other fans in the NL East feel, where they're like, "Oh, great, we just won 7 of our last 9, and we have not moved up in the standings whatsoever because the Phillies just did the exact same thing." No, I'm definitely optimistic because like you said, that I would have a charitable interpretation of the Braves' record is really good, but they've had a lot of their hitting core, hitting a step or two below what they normally should. I would say that is probably a good sign rather than a bad sign, because that means once they do start doing their thing, then the team is going to be even better.
I'm with you. Let's talk some bat speed, Bailey.
Yeah.
Because I laughed. I'll be honest with you. I laughed a little bit when I saw the Passan tweet yesterday on Jeff Passan Day. And I saw it on the broadcast, and I was like, the Sunday Night Baseball ESPN broadcast, and I was like, okay, like, new thing, bat speed, all right. Which, for me, the laughter comes from, there's a little bit of a formula here. Like, we've been measuring exit velo for a while. You can tell a little bit, some of the guys that swing a little bit harder than everyone else. To see Giancarlo on top of the leaderboard by a lot makes sense. He is the guy that has hit baseball's hardest in his career. I guess for me, and it's what we're going to talk about when we see something like Matt Chapman. We talked about this before the show. In a way is high up on this leaderboard, in a way is not. That I think it was Bochy. I need to find the quote, but one of the old school managers, when analytics was getting hot in the streets, like originally, just had an electric old man quote. Is like, back in my day, we just called analytics stats. And it's like, this is just another stat that teams will use somehow in some way, and maybe we'll have some ooh and ah moments the next time Stanton swings 83 miles per hour, and it's like, that's never been done before. But I guess I appreciate every stat and analytic we have. I think they all go together to build each individual player. That if you get too obsessed with one, that's how you get in trouble as a franchise. I think we saw that with the 23 Yankees, to be honest with you. Josh Donaldson's exit velo, Estevan Florial exit velo. So I guess when all of this is coming out and getting announced to you, what's your reaction, and where have you gone with it?
Well, I mean, I was excited, and you could call this an old man quote, or you can call this a young man quote, but the classic is, if someone's complaining about analytics, just replace the word analytics in their complaint with the word information.
Yeah.
And often you'll find that their complaint seems a little silly. I can't believe they used information to make that decision.
Yes.
As far as this bat speed stuff goes, there are as many reasons why it matters as there are reasons why it does not matter whatsoever. And the first reason I would say it wouldn't matter is that bat speed, by and large, for these guys is a choice. It's a mix of, yes, I do believe that Giancarlo Stanton, who is number one on this list, if you go to Giancarlo Stanton and say, hey, swing the bat as hard as you can, one swing, and he does it. And then you go down to Luis Arias, who's at the bottom of this list, and you tell him to do the same thing. I do believe that Stanton can swing the bat faster than Luis Arias, but it's a choice because, at the same time, like Luis Arias, he could bring up that bat speed quite a bit if he really wanted to. He could make his swing a lot longer. He could just grip it and rip it, and he wouldn't be at the top of this leaderboard, but he would be higher. But if he did that, Jake, he wouldn't be Luis Arias.
Right.
He'd be somebody else. That's the fun, So for a lot of these guys, the average bat speed, we like to think of these analytics, these metrics as being, predictive in some way or a precursor to success. But I think in a lot of ways, these are just simply results of a process that's already been put in place by the hitter, because any of these guys could go higher or lower on the list if they wanted to. It would just depend on whether they were prioritizing, thump or just a sheer amount of contact. So that's one reason not to care about it. One reason to care about it is, I think you can really help identify like interesting breakout guys. And one guy who really stands out to this list to me is down there at number 34. It's Wilyer Abreu. And the reason I bring up Wilyer Abreu is because if you just look at this list, look at everyone who's ahead of Wilyer Abreu. One of the reasons why bat speed is important, even without these metrics to measure them directly in the first place, is that it's a very scoutable trait. And so when you're a scout scouting a minor league hitter or a high school hitter, and you're just using the good old fashioned eye test, bat speed stands out. Like I remember watching videos of Julio when he was in the minors, and Julio is number 9 on this list, and his bat speed was the standout trait just from video. And just looking at the guys ahead of Wilyer Abreu, by and large, you're going to see guys who I think were at some point in their young professional careers really hyped prospects. I see Machado, I see Tatis, I see Austin Riley, I see, Ohtani, I see Trout, I see Soto, I see Julio, I see Acuna. These guys were all like extremely high prospects. And I feel like Wilyer Abreu wasn't necessarily. Like he maybe had some love, last year for what he was doing in the minors. But when you see a guy who is competitive in terms of the bat speed with guys, or, who's ahead of Matt Olson, who's ahead of Teoscar Hernandez, those guys have serious thump. That's a standout trait for me if someone does have that ability. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts so far on are you picking up what I'm putting down?
A little bit. Like I like what you're saying about Abreu, who, dude, diving back into the Sox yesterday and just looking at that team. Again, I don't know if we have to give, was it Andrew Bailey, the pitching coach, more credit? And just how injured they have been, that the Sox, God, in another division, if the Sox were in the NL Central, what would we be saying as half of that division has faded off as the season's gone on? But bat speed is I like how you said it. It's there's a part of it that's a choice.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a great time to talk about Ohtani, because he is, whether you're looking at the chart that BBD's put on the screen on the YouTube a little bit, and whether it's just average bat speed ranking, or I love myself a pretty graph with players' heads pictured on it.
We could do a pretty graph of players' heads.
And we have that. It's something about Shohei that seems so sustainable, is that I think if a lot of Shohei swings so hard, if you haven't watched Shohei in a little bit and you watch him and then you see him you see him swing at the 1-0 pitch, you're like, oh my God. Like that's an angry.
I'm afraid he's going to tear his oblique every time he swings. It's crazy how much just force he's putting across his whole body to swing.
That would be, honestly, if Shohei has an oblique injury, that'll be one of my first big yellow flags, because man, he swings so hard, yet it's so under control. And I think that becomes the second part of the conversation, because Giancarlo Stanton is built like a Greek god. And he tries to swing as hard as he can. He doesn't have 2 strikes, choke up. He does not have that. O'Neal Cruz, Schwarber, your top 3 on the list, they are up there swinging with awful intentions every time they swing the bat. That for each of these players, again, it turns into a case-by-case basis where, Yordan, kind of in the same boat. Okay. I will say this gives, Wilson Contreras, who every time I feel like a stat comes out, it's against one of the Contreras brothers. This gives them some love. Okay, it makes sense why they're so damn good at this game, because part of it is they can swing the bat harder than you. I guess where I'm interested to see as this develops, because the other side of the chart is squared up / swing percentage, or how I'm saying that wrong.
So here's how it works. Squared up, it's actually quite interesting. So for each speed of swing that you have, there is a theoretical max exit velocity. If I go up there with my crappy bat speed and I beautifully square up the baseball, Jake, I can only hit it so hard,
right,
because I'm more of a slap hitter anyways.
Yeah.
So when you get a ball that's squared up, according to this, you made it within 80% of that theoretical max exit velocity.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of times when you combine high bat speed with the ability to square it up is where you're really going to start to actually learn something more about these guys. And BBD, if you will, if you'll scroll back up to the heads, and if you can even move it over to the right just a little bit. So that top right of that scatter plot, those are the guys by and large who have the high average bat speed and they square it up consistently. And you'll see one outlier there is a Yankee. That is Mr. Juan Soto.
Yeah.
And we were just talking Contreras. Looking at this chart, the guy who impressed me the most in this chart entirely is down to the left of him a little bit, and that's going to be William Contreras, because he has that same Soto-esque quality, at least so far this season. It's still a relatively small sample size on some of these things, where, yes, he has the really high bat speed, but yeah, he's going to thump it and make really consistent contact quality as well. And look, there's Shohei right there. I see Jordan. I see who else am I seeing? I see Salvi,
Yeah.
So I mean, these guys are all great hitters.
And Gavin Sheets.
Right. I mean, we should have brought him up earlier when we were talking about the best hitter in baseball.
Hey, go ball out, Gavin. Yeah, I guess for me, the next step on this is this can become hopefully a decent predictive stat, like you're saying with Abreu. Like, okay, hey, if you can barrel up the ball at this level with this exit velo, there's something there. And my only caveat would be, I remember watching Gary Sanchez hit the same line drive out to the left fielder every time, standing on the warning track to begin the pitch. That there's something to your hitting profile that with where defense is at, that you need to spray the ball a certain degree, or something that I've been pushing for, like I've been emailing the commissioner every day. I'm on a ban outfield shifts, just because I think the athleticism of outfielders, and I think the bigger thing is baseball has gone very firmly to, whether it's Blake Snell, or whatever it is, Dylan Cease, singles and walks do not kill you anymore. It's home runs and extra base hits. Shohei is leading Major League Baseball in doubles right now after Freddie hit 150 of them last year. The double is a great play in baseball. There's speed, there's defense, there's a hard hit ball, extra bases. And with the way defensive plays, they've taken away a lot of doubles. Dude, how many times... God, I wish... I'm obviously not going to put together this montage, and no one should, but Luis Ariz is currently a 1-of-1 on baseball, and that's shown in the chart. He is as top left as it gets, that he is barreling the ball more than any other player, but he has a lower swing speed than every other player. And the argument for the past 10, 20 years now has been players can't control that. And basically, you kind of can. I'm not saying you can be Luis Ariz, but as I move over on the chart, let me find a player. Should
Simeon's over there.
Should Abraham Toro be my example? We have some contact, less strikeout kings. I see Verdugo. I see Justin Turner. Josh Rojas's breakout might make more sense to people, as he is one of the closest dots to Luis Ariz. Bryce Terang is there. That we got so far away because exit velo, the harder you hit the ball, that leads to more hits. Direct correlation. Let's do that. That two-strike approaches left, they are out of the game. And does anyone else in baseball currently try to hit like Luis Ariz?
Not really. No. I mean, yeah, even Quan wants to hit for more power this year, and he would be probably the closest analog.
You're right. That I think this shows me, like you're saying, bat speed is kind of somewhat a controlled measure.
Yes.
Obviously, the elite are going to be able to swing a little bit harder, which is cool, and that's where Soto and Stanton are, and Shohei, and like you said, William Contreras on this chart. Pretty cool. I guess for me, I want more doubles in baseball, which I think we can get if we regulated outfield shifts. Because, man, there's still a lot of balls in the gap that are driven to the wall that I have flashbacks to young me learning baseball. Like, doubles used to go off the back wall, like just over outfielders' heads. And then
I think, can I say something to that? I think because of the outfield shifting, I see so many doubles nowadays too, and it's because these guys are great athletes. Like doubles used to go to the wall when I was a kid. Now they look like singles until the guy rounds first incredibly fast. We have more of those now where it seems like they're stealing the double because maybe they were shifted over and they hit what should have been a single into that gap. So I agree. Just visually, doubles are weird nowadays because I see, and I mean, maybe it's just because I watch the Braves too. Like I see so many hits that I'm like, when I was a kid, that would have been a single, but now it's a double because it's Acuna or Michael Harris or someone like that, and I know they're going to go for second.
Well, it's the same thing about infield shifts, just kind of with extra bases attached. Like the patented single up the middle that was removed from the game. And by the way, defenders are still kind of there, which
against a lefty, there's the shortstop is an inch to the right of second base.
Hey, it's something, and we'll take it, and that's kind of where I think we've landed in a much better spot at least. But I mentioned I was watching Arenado put a charge into a ball that for years, depending where your left fielder was, probably could have been a game-tying or game-winning double on Saturday, and instead, the outfielder was right there. And we've gotten so used to that, and I don't think it's a good thing. Again, I'll Yankee-fy it a little bit, but in right field at Yankee Stadium, which is shallow, we've seen it's turned into a single. If you hit a ball hard enough to get to the wall, unless you're a player built on speed, it's a single that, I in my head, it's Paul O'Neill, turning and firing, and you were going to have some close plays at second. That, where I'm going with this whole thing, is if that was regulated a little more and contact led to more extra base results, because it is what guys get paid on, that maybe we would see more Luis Arraez approaches or Luis Arraez two-strike approaches, because this data shows that if in 2 strikes you swing a little less hard and try to make contact, you have more of a chance to make contact.
Yeah,
that I think that's a good thing for baseball to have. That I guess I'm thinking in the bigger scope of the game than just these individual players. But if a couple more Luis Arraez doubles happen and that turns into a higher OPS, I think you'd see more people try to emulate that.
Yeah, and and now that we have this bat speed data, I mean, we can see across the league there is obviously fluctuation in bat speed for each count.
Right.
Like guys are swinging a lot harder on 3-1 than they are on 1-2. But one thing I've actually liked looking at on the leaderboard is what's called the fast swing rate, which are swings of over 75 miles per hour, because I think it's kind of illustrative of what you are asking for. And what I love to see too is what I would call a dynamic hitter, someone who changes their approach based on the count and the situation, who's not taking the exact same swing no matter what. And a couple guys that stood out to me as far as having a higher fast swing rate compared to their average bat speed, at least in terms of how they're ranked, were Mookie Betts and Jose Altuve. They were not high bat speed guys, but they took a lot of, and by the way, the reason they landed on 75 miles per hour for this is that the average home run swing is 75 miles per hour. Okay. So they take home run swings when they want to. And that's great because I want the guy who's gonna, on 2 strikes, just try to make contact. But then when it's 3-1 and he sees his pitch, I just want the guy that's going to just shit on the baseball, basically, right. And that's Betts can do that and Altuve can do that. And they're, so just going through this leaderboard, I liked seeing those guys come up because you can see okay, look at Altuve versus Swanson right now. Swanson's bat speed on average is 2 miles per hour higher. And so is Naylor's and Garver's. But Altuve is taking more home run swings theoretically, And so I like those guys because I think that shows that what they're doing is dynamic.
I guess there's been a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of me that's been an old head about this topic, which is funny because with clean shave and my hair flip today, I'm
arguing with a 15-year-old Italian boy about this.
Yeah, someone's gonna clip this pic of you, me, and BBD, and it's gonna be like that meme of those little kids on YouTube. Like, let's talk about the rap battle. That's basically what this is. So I'll get my first old head thing out, which was the first player that I remember being told on the broadcast had crazy bat speed, and this super dates me because it like shouldn't count. Darryl Strawberry. I remember when Strawberry came over to the Yankees, they were like, "This dude's swing speed is different." And so again, I know we'll never get stats like that, but I was laughing when all this came out that I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be a good old man thing for me," because then people look it up and they'll be like, "Wait, he was born in '89? Like that doesn't why he wasn't watching Darryl Strawberry?" And it's like, I caught the end, baby. And then I guess my fun spin on this has now turned into I love team building. I've talked about building Madden franchises. We've talked about out of the park baseball, which a reminder, go check out Bailey as he's bringing the Oakland Athletics or Las Vegas bringing them back
in Oakland,
bringing them back to prominence. I'm not leaving. That's Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. Anyways, I love team building. That I would love if in 3 years we're talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates have a team of guys and they teach it organizationally that they A, swing when they're ahead in the count and they B, swing when they're behind in the count. And I'd love to see what that looks like. Like, could that be a Pittsburgh Pirates team that torments pitchers? Could that break baseball? Or is it like these Pirates they're losing runs by not always taking their A swing? Like, it's what I enjoy about the sport that I guess I am interested to see to see what we can do with the next steps of this. Because if I'm being honest, like, the initial return on this is like, wow, big, strong guys swing real hard. When they hit ball hard, it goes hard. Glad we got the numbers.
Do you feel like you're looking at like a worse version of exit velocity in a way?
I mean, kind of. Like, how far away is it? You know?
Well, what I kind of like is that it's okay. So, for example, if I was trying to predict like who is going to slug without actually looking at their slugging numbers, then I would probably go look at some of the exit velocities and the barrel rates or something like that. And then, but what predicts that, right? What predicts someone's ability to have a high exit velocity or a high barrel rate? Their bat speed, Yeah. So it's the same way. If I wanted to find out who's going to get on base this year, I would say, let me look at their strikeout rate and their walk rate, Okay, well, what's going to predict their strikeout rate and their walk rate? Well, their contact rate and their chase rate.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel about this. I think this is the equivalent for like contact or chase rate, but for, power, for example.
Yeah, that's what
I do want to talk about organization here.
Isn't the only missing piece on this essentially launch angle? Like, isn't that the next, like, to be a power hitter, it's swing speed, how contact rate, and launch angle.
Yep, absolutely. And if you can pull it too, that helps. But I do want to talk about organizationally here, and I'm gonna instruct BBD to work the graph here. If he wants to scroll up, this isn't gonna be super easy, but
stop calling me the
where
graph.
It says y axis right there on that drop down, I want you to go to swing length. It's between swords and blast / swing. So swing length is one thing that is being measured by this, and you've probably heard the scouting terminology before. Oh, this guy has a long swing, and maybe he's not going to make that much contact, or has a short, compact swing. If you look in that bottom right there, you have guys who have short swings, but who have high bat speed. And you'll see a lot of just great young hitters within there. You will see Bobby Witt. You will see Colton Cowser. You'll see Wyatt Langford. You'll see Corbin Carroll. You will see Brian Reynolds. Like I think this is just like a fun group of guys when you get them all together. Because these are the guys that, they have the bat speed, but they're Seager. But they're not necessarily having to make like sacrifices to reach that bat speed because they're keeping things short and compact. And if you were to actually do this by team, and you don't have to BBD, the Orioles are dominant in this, in their ability to do this. And I think that's, how should I put it? Like I think just coming out of the draft, the guys they like to pick are bat control guys. Look, they have like half their lineup in there. So I think organizationally, you can see to some extent what teams are focusing on. I think the Orioles, they like guys who have a shorter swing, but they still have thump, because I think, honestly, just looking at how they've drafted the last few years as far as their hitters, bat control is probably the number one trait they go after.
See, I'm not trying to be instant reactionary, but I think there may be more information to get off this page than the straight up swing speed, because with Javi Baez being a pretty big outlier on this page, and I don't know where the whole Javi Baez thing is at, because like whenever I watch Tigers games, like he's carrying on defense, so I don't know, like has he just given up on hitting? But if he hasn't, I would show Javi Baez this and be like, hey, let's shorten up the swing a little bit. Because that clearly seems to be a problem for you. If you are an outlier and you are doing this, I think this is very interesting for me, because some of the pods of players before didn't fully make sense to me, and I think this starts to make a little more sense, because like Ian Happ was in a bad spot on the last chart. And this one, he's kind of like, okay, like it's a pretty short swing. I'm interested in this for Oswaldo Cabrera. Like this, I think this is a good thing for him, because he was with a lot of the contacty guys on the sheet, but it feels like he very much has an A swing sometime. That I don't know. I think if I was a player, I would mess around with this, because, like you said, there's some interesting groupings of players: Corbin Carroll and Bobby Witt, with Colton Cowser, Wyatt Langford. Like, if I was a player, I would try to mess around with the length of my speed, what that bat speed got me, and then the results of those swings, because I feel like that's something I could tinker with as a hitter to find out what is the best solution for me.
Yeah, because I mean, like theoretically, maybe the way to do it is to just get the shortest swing possible that can still get up to 75 miles per hour. Like maybe that's the answer,
Well, and
maybe we just solved hitting.
That's where you hit a chord for me with when saying all the Orioles are doing it. Like maybe that's part of their secret sauce. Maybe that's why they just have interchangeable top outfield prospects they're calling up day in, day out. We've talked a lot about how the hitters can combat pitching technology, and if I was a hitter in the offseason, to find my optimum swing, I would mess around with this. And maybe they can. But again, it's such a funny thing, because you still got to hit that ball and kind of have an idea what pitches are coming. That I don't know. I guess for the contact guys, I would try to see how much I could push my contact to get up the power chart. For the power guys, if tightening it up a little bit, like it's a dumb hitting thing that I think even if you play Little League, shorten up your swing. Like everyone's heard that. If I'm a pro 6'2", 220-pound ball player, I would love to know how much I could shorten up my swing to make more contact to get better results.
Yeah, especially if you really square it up, you could still hit a home run taking that swing,
Right.
All right. I think we can probably just about wrap up here, but I have a few more just like rapid fire thoughts on the bat speed leaderboard. I'm going to give you like a couple things that I think are weaknesses and one thing that I think is its greatest strength.
Okay.
Although has not quite been unlocked yet. So very obvious weakness. These guys swing different weighted bats, and that's not accounted for. Like Judge is 8th on this list. I think if you gave Judge the same bat that some of these guys are using, he could be up to 1st or 2nd. You know,
Right.
like some of these guys are swinging a bigger bat than others, and there's going to be more force behind that. You know, you'll recall when I first saw this leaderboard, the first person I really thought of actually was Chris Davis with the C. Former Orioles great, because that was a guy who hit so many home runs and yet just with your own eyes did not have much bat speed to speak of. That was not his game. Another weakness is actually within the swing length itself. You know, depending on the locations of pitches you're getting or whether you're trying to get out in front of the ball and pull it, I think there's some inconsistency there with the swing length. I think that could probably be better normalized in a way so that everyone's you know, swing length is fair, because you know, if you're trying to get out in front of the ball, like, yeah, maybe you're going to take a longer swing to get there. But my biggest compliment to it, and the thing that I'm looking forward to most, is I would love to use this leaderboard to compare players to their past selves. And we can't do that yet. This data is from 2024 only, so we're going to collect all the data in 2024. But once 2025 hits and, you know, someone shows up and their bat speed is 2 miles per hour higher and they're making the same amount of contact, like, that is going to be meaningful. You know, like, that's going to, especially if you read that they went to Driveline and did a bat speed program, you know, that winter, that is going to be a really exciting thing. They do actually have data from 2023. I remember Baseball America, you know, published an article on it, but it's being treated as test data for them. They were still like ironing out the system, so we're only going to get it from 2024 onwards. But I truly think the biggest potential for this leaderboard and for this bat tracking is not necessarily to compare players to their peers; it's to compare them to themselves.
You'd hope so. You'd hope so. I mean, I honestly, I'll go old head again. Even when you mention Driveline for hitting, I just get a little nervous because you don't want things to get too far away from what makes the sport good. Like, I gave a random 5-minute rant about wanting more doubles that people fast forwarded through. That if this turns into swing bat as hard as I can, like, if I've got players on this list, let's see. Josh Rojas, I complimented him before. He took over Seattle's leadoff spot with a contacty approach. If Josh Rojas sees Giancarlo Stanton on the list at 80 miles per hour, and it's a race for guys like Josh Rojas to get there, Adam Frazier next to him on the list, you know, I don't know if that leads to a better result for the game. To me, that just sounds like minor league pitcher, throw harder, can make more mistakes in the zone. With any stat or information or data or analytics, you just want the right guys to use it properly. And, you know, maybe for Nolan Shanuel, who is an on-base contacty first baseman, maybe he finds something with his swing speed or a different swing that he can get a little more pop from it, because it's a pop position that at a certain point, these guys are playing for their jobs and their careers, that if Nolan Shanuel is a non-power first baseman and he has one meh year, your arb doesn't get picked up, and now you're one of the fish in the sea. That, again, I'm picking examples directly off the sheet in front of me, but I just honest concerns and questions.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, I don't think we're going to be in the chasing bat speed era, or maybe, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're already in there because of the exit velo. This is the 10th year we've had StatCast. This is the 10th baseball season we've had StatCast. So we've known about the exit velo for quite some time. So I don't think this is going to transform the game as much as the exit velo already has. And, you know, these guys, I mean, you know, when they're training in the offseason, they all have the blast sensors on their bat. They know all this information. It's just now made available to the public so that baseball geniuses like you and I can interpret it and tell you who's really good and who's really not good.
God, that Vidal Brujan, Ernie Clement, Kevin Newman grouping, really doing something for me. I will say, man, Kevin Newman made some plays at shortstop for the Snakes that have turned my head. I'm happy for you, Kevin Newman. And it always makes me laugh about the shortstop position because there's only 15 guys in the world that can like play it at a high level, and Kevin Newman is one of those people.
That's how he's got a job, man.
Which
Like,
is just incredible.
let's keep it going, Kevin Newman.
There's probably a bunch of young Pirate fans that pooped on Kevin Newman for not being a very good hitter. But God, he can play the hell out of shortstop. 6'1", 195, incredible athlete. Anything else you need to tie off the final knot with? That's not a phrase.
I guess we could just tease. I mean, I'll be there with you next week.
Yeah.
That is big news.
Wow.
So if you enjoyed if you enjoyed this, I mean, presumably we'll record one of these while I'm up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
I liked your suggestion for a draft. We'll have to research that a little more. And yeah, I know you and Happy Grape, Jolly Olive are excited to do that TikTok where the two people pretend to fight. So
right.
Finally, you guys can check that off your bucket list.
And just there's text next to us that says like OPS plus, WRC plus, FIP, XFIP.
Some baseball middle school loser who's just drooling at that right now.
Yeah.
Holy shit, are they really going to do it?
Wait, is that are they messing with me? Because I've been asking for that. For anyone that enjoyed this, make sure you're following at Foolish Bailey, and his Oopah run and everything else. You did a video on StatCast has bat tracking now. That I don't know. You probably gave a good sampling in this, but go check that out for more information. And yeah, there should be some good JM baseball video with Foolish coming up. So thank you, Bailey, and to everyone else. We will see you soon. Wake and Jake is a production of Dan Patrick Productions, John Boy Media, and Workhouse Media. Have a good weekend. What day is it?